Alright, hello and welcome back to another V Rising video. Today we have dev update number 29, Weapons of the Night. So, it's been a bit. I'm very excited to get into this and talk a little bit about this new update. We got a little bit of an update as well that the Triple I initiative will be doing a V Rising video, or not necessarily just focused on V Rising, but multiple different indie games. But one of the segments will be on V Rising, and so we should hopefully get some information on that coming up soon. I'll bring up the link really quickly just for people who are interested. Triple I is an indie game collective that does content for different indie games, and so this year they are going to be focusing on V Rising along with some of these other games here as well. So I will make a video once this comes out, but for today we're just going to focus on this new dev update. It's been a while since there's been another dev update. I think the last update was in December, so it's been a couple of months now, and luckily though we have a juicy one here today, so we're going to focus on what is being talked about. So this update is going to focus on weapons, so I'm going to be focusing mostly on talks about combat, weapon specialization and stuff, and just showing kind of some of the different items that you'll be getting in the new 1.1 update, which will be coming out probably sometime around May. But I think with the delays, we're probably going to see it maybe a little later than May, but we'll see. It really depends. I think with this Triple I initiative, we'll probably get a release date for when 1.1 will be coming. Starting off, they have announced 3 new weapons for 1.1. First being the Claws, which is a long-awaited weapon. We can see here a bit of a transmogrification. We have, I think it's a tier 1 cloak here. The Blood Tattered Cloak, I think is what it's called. Take that with a grain of salt. My memory's a little off, but I think that's what it's called. But yeah, we can really see here with this cosmetic, it really shows this kind of like Nosferatu look. This is something I have been very excited about for quite a while, and I have always kind of wanted to have a type of weapon like this in the game, and so this is going to be really cool to take advantage of in the long run. So it has a combo of melee attacks. Here you can see the GIF, and then it seems that on the 3rd or 4th strike, I think it's the 4th strike, 3rd attack inflicts puncture. You can trigger it as well, and it will explode. And from what I was reading online, it sounds as well like that trigger will be manual. So it's going to be really interesting to see what that trigger is, just because it'll mean that the auto attacks in V Rising so far are really just left mouse buttons, and so having an additional trigger attack means you'll have a little bit more variety in your overall classification, right? So we've got a puncture mechanic that's outlined here. It pops in a chaotic explosion of damage depending on how many stacks have built up on your foe. We have a lunge attack as well. You can see here the animation. Pretty cool. You vault towards the cursor and cleave enemies, dealing 100% physical damage and inflicting puncture. So I've just, side note, I've recently started to get into the PvP side of V Rising, and so this is really interesting because I get to see a little bit of how these weapons are going to have impact on both PvE and PvP. A lot of these weapons, I think, in this dev update particularly, are very fast moving, and so I think they'll probably be quite involved in PvP in the long run. Moving forward, we have a skewering leap, where it looks like this is probably the E, I assume, because the lunge is the Q. So you jump in and then bounce off, which is pretty cool in all honesty. It looks like it has a 10-second cooldown, so I'm going to assume this is a bit more of a big damage ability. Next up, we have another weapon that's coming to V Rising, the Twin Blade. Which is pretty cool. I have to admit, out of all the weapons that were announced in this devlog, this is the one I was the least expecting. Just because I don't think we really have anything like this in the game at this point. I might be wrong about that. I'm sure there's someone, like a couple characters out there, but the animations are so different as well. A primary attack is a double hit. Essentially, it does 2 slashes because it's a dual blade, which is really cool. And then there's a javelin aspect to it as well. You throw it down, and then if you want to, you can either go towards the javelin, or you can bring the enemy towards you. So that's good to keep in account. There's a sweeping strike. This is the E, where you lunge forward and it throws it back. This is quite similar to the animation from the claws animation. Instead, obviously, you're moving, hitting them, and jumping off. Whereas with the this one, you're bringing them backwards, right? Finally, we have the throwing daggers, aimed to kill. This kind of gives me like a Van Helsing vibe slightly. I guess Van Helsing has guns, but just the cosmetic here. So yeah, the primary attack is literal thrown daggers. You can get multiple of them down in the on the ground, and then you can rain them in as well. This is the Q, where you throw them down. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then finally we have the release daggers. You can take all the daggers, bring them back to you. So I think this is a very auto attack focused weapon, just because you're going to be trying to stack as many daggers as possible, so that once you do E, you do a lot of damage. One thing I've been really interested with these weapons, usually weapons in V Rising, depending on updates, will follow the how do I say it? The expansion. In that, for example, Gloomrot had guns, and the expansion was very steampunk, with like Frankenstein and so on and forth. And then 1.0 had the whip, which paralleled Simon Belmont, and then we also got the bow as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how these weapons interact with the expansion. My guess is that since there's a lot of purple and necromancy in general, we're probably going to be seeing a lot of that in this upcoming expansion for 1.1, and maybe even bosses that use similar weapon attacks to these. I would think that the final Shardbearer boss, or I don't know if it's going to be final, but it's been confirmed that there will be a Shardbearer boss, is going to be very fast moving, and essentially just like a speedy moving V-Blood. So moving forward, we'll talk a little bit about this. They have been, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that player power might be going down, just because a couple of updates ago, they essentially put out an update talking about how they're going to be like stat changing everything. But they've been adding in a lot of new specific like bonuses and so on and forth, just to basically like buff the players and stuff. I think there is that concern that people were getting nerfed, but it's not. According to the dev blog, it's actually quite the opposite. But one of the things they're going to be adding, in addition to like the Fusion Forge, where you can change your weapons, is weapon coatings. So we can see here, there's a couple of different examples: a storm coating, a blood coating. And essentially, the way these work, they're like temporary buffs, essentially, that you can coat your weapon with. I would love, like absolutely adore, to see like a coating animation. This kind of reminds me of, how do I put it? In games like D&D and so on and forth, or I think it was a thing in World of Warcraft, but your like essentially your animation where a character like coats their blade in blood, and then you can see the blade is infused in blood. Or for example, the storm coating, it would be really cool if in those couple of seconds where you're using it, it says then it changes color. Now on here it says the on-hit effect recharges every 15 seconds and the imbuement lasts for 60 minutes. So maybe they won't do it just because it's a whole 60-minute thing, but I would be really interested to see if it was a temporary infusion and you can just see like your blade is a different color or something, your weapon is a different color, or it just has like that imbuing to it. Just that alone from a visual perspective would be really cool, but also obviously you get to pick and choose which coatings you want to apply to your weapons, and they even give you little bonuses like blood orb for the blood coating, or additional triggered chain lightning. So yeah, we'll see how we'll interact with these. I'm really interested to see how these will operate in the 1.1 update. It's mentioned that these infusions are something you will garner in the part of 1.1. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that you will get this at the end of the game, just because the way Rising in the past has done updates, they haven't essentially gone and stacked each update after the end of the previous update. Most often, it's actually quite common that they will put out an update, and the content from that update will be prior to the shard bearers. So I think there's a good chance that we will get these coatings before even getting legendary weapons. But speaking of legendary weapons, for the final aspect of this dev update, they gave us a little bit of a look into the legendary weapons with a couple of photos. And if you stay tuned in this video, I also have a leaked final Claws legendary weapon model. So, but we'll take a look at these. Here we have the Hand of Winter, which is a Gripping Cold legendary mace, and it looks really nice. In all honesty, we've got this black outline with blue icicles coming out of it, so super cool to see that. The Thousand Storms Fork Lightning weapon. This is the Spear Lightning legendary. I like that every single photo they're showing, the transmogrification of the character is like also matching the weapon, which is pretty cool. Like we got the blue fit here, the yellow fit. Speaking of that, the red fit here, and we got the Red Twins, red axes, legendary axes. Very cool. Mauritia's Lament, reap what you sow. This is the legendary scythe. And I have to say I'm really a big fan of this, how it looks. I think, honest to God, these legendary weapons, the drop rate is pretty low on them, and you can accumulate them like throughout the game. But just because they are the final weapons in the game, it's going to be really nice to just collect them as well. It'll give you a little bit more of an incentive to want to get them, because like there is that incentive because the Q and E's slightly alter themselves, and so that already on its own is pretty big. But I think the additional models will want people to collect all of them, just because you can then plan your fits, like how you look around these new weapons, just because they are so diverse compared to the other weapons in the game, where every weapon kind of has the same look. Not in like not like, I'm not saying like a sword looks like a Reaper weapon. I'm more so saying that the dark silver weapons, when you do get those weapons, each one has the same, not the same model, but like same aesthetic. Whereas like something like this, these legendary weapons, look so different from each other. Like for example, this is green and silver, and this is full red, whereas the dark silver weapons are all just like dark silver looking, essentially, right? So it's just going to be nice to get that differentiation. Finally, here we have the last part of the blog here, and obviously the Great Sword Legendary. And God, I have to say, this looks so cool. The purple and black, it almost reminds me of like a OG World of Warcraft Great Sword, or like, I don't know if they're called Great Swords, but like one of those like massive swords you can get in World of Warcraft. And even just the fit with the shoulder pads, like this looks like a World of Warcraft fit. So really cool to see. Obviously you're wondering as well, I have a photo here. This is what the Claws legendary is likely going to look. So Necromancy Claws weapon seems to be the vibe. And yeah, as I was mentioning before, we're getting a lot of like purple and green legendary weapons along with weapons going forward. And so yeah, we're probably going to see a lot of this in the 1.1 update. I'm excited because Necromancy is one of my favorite spell schools, and so I'm really excited to see how summoning and so on forth is going to take a big part of this game, right? So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.